Budgeting is something we think of sometimes as a dirty word, but it is not. I have always had in my career payment cycles that were 2 weeks. In the last portion of my career, it has always been 30 days. So you have to have a budget to make sure that the bills that come in the middle of the month or somewhere after the first, you have set aside funds to make sure those bills are paid. You do not spend money until all the bills are paid. And that's what budgeting helps you do. And it requires a certain amount of self control to keep from getting yourself in a bad place. A lot of people think that if they can just hit the lottery or get a scratch off or something, and people gamble not for fun, but to try to get out of some financial obligation. And a lot of times people gamble with money for their bills, thinking they can win enough to compensate. That never works. This gentleman, Mr. Bud Post, won $16.2 million dollars in a lottery. And look what it says. Bud Post lost 16.2 million within a nightmarish year. His brother put out a hit on him. This is really called. William Bud Post won 16.2 million in a Pennsylvania lottery in 1988, but was 1 million in debt within a year. It was, what did he say? It was a nightmarish year at the top. What does he say down here? I wish it never happened. Poe said it was totally a nightmare. A former girlfriend successfully sued him for a share of his earnings, and his brother was arrested for hiring a hitman to kill him in the hopes he'd inherit a share of the winnings. Money can ruin a family. After sinking money into various family businesses, Post sank into debt and spent time in jail for firing a gun over the head of a bill collector. What is Bud doing? Bud now lives quietly on $450 a month in food stamps. 1 year, this man had his whole life turned upside down. His money basically, his money was gone on stupid projects for his family. His brother tried to kill him. He got sued by his girlfriend. So winning the lottery is not a financial fix if you don't know how to manage money. I watched a program that did a documentary on people who had won large lotteries. And all of the stories were basically the same. They were all broke within a couple of years. One family, though, one couple who had won the Michigan lottery, they got their money. They won the lottery. They said they took the phone off the hook. They sat down and decided what they would do with the money. The husband was able to go back to college. They bought a home, paid cash for the house, and they he went back to college, improved his degree, got another job. His wife continued to work because they didn't have children. So needless to say, they knew how to manage that money. They used it wisely, and I'm quite sure they're still doing well. So winning a lottery will not save you if you still do not know how to manage money. So those of you who are looking for the fabulous scratch off, or you pay gamble and do all these things for the hope of getting out of debt, you need to stop. The best way to handle your money is to learn how to handle it, not expecting some way to get out of it without doing your part. That's what this whole program is all about. That's what this toolkit is all about, to teach you that you can manage your money. Debt can put you in a cell. It can put your mental life in a cell. It can affect your family, your requirements on the base. It can just have so many negative side effects. And the only way to fix that, the only way to correct it and to get out of the mental anguish of debt is training. That's what this video is all about. That's what the toolkit is all about, to give you the tools and the abilities to get yourself out of the situation and not find yourself back in a mental lockdown because of debt.
Every month, Michael ran out of money just before payday. He had to skip paying some bills and pay some bills late. He hated that. So Michael decided to make a budget to see if it would help him pay his bills when they were due. He wrote on a budget worksheet how much money he made each month. Then Michael looked at what he spent last month. He used those expenses to write what he thought he would spend this month. His expenses were higher than his income, which he knew, but now he knew where his money went. He started cutting. He cut money for eating out, movie tickets, and other things he wanted but couldn't afford all the time. That solved the problem and even gave him $50 extra for the month. He put $10 back in his budget to rent movies, and he saved the rest. That month, Michael carefully followed his budget. If he spent more in one budget area, he cut from another. He had enough money to pay all his bills on time. Michael felt much better with a budget.
Now, here's some things that you want to do when making a budget. Making a budget requires life examination. It's sad but true. You have to sit down and be honest with how you spend your money. You write it down. That's what's so important. Writing it out, looking at it, listing all your bills, and it helps you control how you spend and it helps you see where your money goes. If you look at this screen on the bottom, it says under compare the numbers, it says basically if you earn more than you spend, well, that's great. Most of us are not there. You need to start building an emergency fund. But most people live from payday to payday. If you have a family, it's all about juggling your money and trying to make it until payday. That's what's happening with most people. If somehow at the end of the month you have a few bucks left, do not say, oh, hey, babe, come on, let's go to the movies or something. Nah. Put that little money in an envelope somewhere and leave it in a drawer. You just never know. One of the kids may need some shoes. You may need some extra gas, or a tire may blow. That's rare for most families to just have extra money. If you're just working, and in the military, you probably don't have a lot of extra money, but you have to live on your budget. I cannot emphasize that enough. Sometimes when we get into the military, we actually making more money than we did prior to going into the military. And so we have a tendency to spend because you didn't have these resources before. And then the next thing the next slide said it basically spend more than you earn. That's what begins to happen. So then you have to look for ways to cut out. Are you now buying a lot of video games? And the most detrimental thing, as sad as it may sound, is cable. If you sit down and you add up cable and how much money you spend on cable and movies and stuff, you can spend $100 to sometimes $200 on cable packages a month. So maybe it's time to cut back to basic, or like old people over here. I have a Roku. you know, I don't have cable. When I sit down one time and I ran the numbers and I realized that I was spending almost $900 a year just to watch television, I no longer was interested in cable or Dish Network or whatever. So that's an expense that you might think of cutting. I know it sounds cruel, but if your money is tight, some of these things you just cannot afford. So budgeting requires being realistic about your finances and what you spend. That will keep you out of trouble. In our world today, our phones have the capability of downloading numerous apps for various functions. In this particular slide, we're discussing money management and how to use these apps to do that. You can get these apps from the App Store and other places, but you want to be sure that you download it from someplace secure. Research the app, check into the company, and I strongly recommend if you're getting a banking app that you download it from the bank or the credit union and pay attention to the various rights that app wants to have on your phone, because you could put yourself in a position where you would actually be in a breach situation because this app would compromise you by how much access, it takes over on your phone. So you want to understand the tools that the app provide, make sure that it is secure, and you want to be aware of the cost that the app may cost you, and also you want to be aware of the features that the app gives. Say, for instance, it's a way to monitor your banking account, to check and make sure your bills are paid, to get little alerts to protect against fraud. The app can be a very useful thing, but it also, if it's solely designed to take advantage of your information on your phone, then it becomes a security issue. And also, this particular lesson mentioned something called peer to peer payments. I'm not a big fan of peer to peer, any form of peer to peer, because that's open connection between you and another user. So you must monitor that and make sure that the permissions are correct and that it has some kind of secure pin on it. Else you could compromise your banking account and your personal information. To shop smart is to ask yourself the question: is this a need or a want? Can I live without this? Do I just have to have it? Is it needful for just sustaining life? You need to ask these kinds of questions. So, shopping smart is more than just knowing how to get a good deal, it's knowing when to get that good deal. And what causes money problems is when we look for good deals that we really don't need. So, use your military resources, the commissary, the exchange. Search online for credible information on deals and discounts. But and it says use apps to get the best deal. Yeah, I have app issues. So make sure that these apps you're using are legitimate apps. Get the app from the actual store. I know you can get these apps as opposed to Canvas many stores, but sometimes those apps are can cause you to have a security breach on your phone because they literally will compromise your phone. So be sure you know what you're doing when you're downloading these apps, and look for other resources in your community that can help with finances and other little things you need to purchase for you and your family. But the main thing of shopping smart is to ask yourself, do I really need this? Do I really need this? That will help you stop the impulse shopping that can cause debt. Allotments can be a very useful tool when they're done right, but there are limitations to allotments. Some things you can do, some things you cannot do. I would strongly recommend talking to the personnel financial manager prior to, so they can explain to you what allotments you qualify for, what can be used for these allotments. Some things you cannot pay for with an allotment. There are two kinds: the discretionary and the non discretionary. You can get six discretionary allotments, which, for example, cover sending money directly to your bank or for a savings account. So, are there 15 non discretionary allotments, which are ways to pay the government for things like savings bonds, or maybe you had to overdue taxes or a loan from military relief agency, these things, but they will not pay for the things we love to buy, like clothes, furniture, cars, all of this. They will not do an allotment for that. So, my recommendation is, prior to you doing any kind of allotment or thinking about how you're going to pay, talk to the personnel financial manager so they can go over your budget with you, make sure you're making good decisions. And my recommendation, from my point of view, as I learned from a financial planner, that you do not buy furniture, jewelry, clothes on credit. You just don't do that. Because what happens is, as I learned, these are not assets, they are liabilities. So that jewelry you buy at a jewelry store and you're paying every month for this jewelry, it is not really an asset, it is a liability, because you're wearing something you don't own. And if you don't pay for it, they come in to get it. The same thing with the furniture, and you end up with some crazy stuff on your credit report. So prior to purchasing these things, ask them, do they have a layaway? I know that's a dirty word for some people. I have used layaway many times because I did not want to have to spend that kind of money or put it on credit, but it was something that I wanted and at the time didn't have enough cash. So they would hold it for me for like 2 months, or some places 3 months, and depending on how much it cost, and I would pay for it and pick it up. Never buy furniture, clothes or jewelry on credit. They have furniture furniture stores will give you a loan. Don't do that. Just say, how much is it? And then you ask them, can we do a layaway plan? If they don't, you might want to find another furniture store because you are going to wear the furniture out. A lot of times it's going to be messed up by the time you get it paid for. That's why it is not an asset. Thank you so much for watching Military Consumers Toolkit Part 1, Spending and Budgeting. Look forward to seeing you at Part 2. Have a great day.